Hey, hi guys, welcome back on our YouTube channel. So today we have a very great, or we can say the great personality on our YouTube channel. So Jay Smith. Hey, welcome Jay Smith. How are you?
I am really good. It's a great day.
Thank you so much for your precious time and accepting our invitation to give your now very eager to know a lot about you and what you are doing and your past experiences as well, as you have huge experience and a lot of expertise in blockchain domain. So without any further delay or wasting a lot of time, I would like to
Right.
get directly into our main conversation. So Jay, can you please tell more about you to our audience, like from your background, what you do currently, and from which background you came? Over to you, sir.
Sure. So right now I am the president of DeFi Devs, and I'm also the chairman of the governance committee for Accumulate. DeFi Devs is kind of the labs for the Accumulate protocol. And then
Mm.
I'm also involved in a couple of L2s that are being built on the Accumulate protocol.
Okay.
And my background is, I'm a computer geek that keeps getting sidetracked into business stuff. I've spent, before blockchain, I spent just a lot of years building financial systems. I worked for some of the bigger consulting companies, and
Mm-hmm.
I've built the capital management systems and cash management and payment systems for the like of Citibank and ANZ and BMO and Barclays and just about everybody around the world over the years, which has been interesting. It's made this journey kind of
Mm-hmm.
interesting because I've a really strong background in the traditional financial markets and the traditional financial systems. And then in
Amazing.
2018, jumping into the blockchain world, which is a bit different. I had a friend of mine, Paul Snow, that got in much earlier
Mm.
than me. He always tells me that he bought Bitcoin at 25 cents, and then he
Oh,
immediately follows that with, yeah, I just didn't buy enough. And which
okay.
a lot of people say that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I joined uh, Paul at a company he created, Factom,
Hmm.
back in
Phantom.
2018. Yep, one of the very early blockchains. In fact, it launched about
Yeah.
the same time as Ethereum,
Hmm.
and have been working with him ever since. And now Factom has become Accumulate. That's pretty much my life, trying to tell the world about
Amazing.
Accumulate and the interesting things it can do.
Hmm. Amazing. So, one curious question I have here. So, if we are talking about Cumulate, you are building it from so long, it converted from Phantom to the Cumulate. So, I would like
Mhm.
to know, what is their difference between the currently there is a Ethereum, Polkadot, or Cosmos. There are different L1, right, chain,
Mhm.
and how it is
Right.
different than the existing chain that accumulate.
No,
What's the extra features we are
yeah,
bringing? Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, that's a really good question. And it goes back to, a minute ago, I talked about Paul Snow, my partner. I've worked with on this. He was
Yeah.
involved in the creation of Ethereum. He's listed as one of the contributors. I did a lot of work on the
Yeah.
EVM. And as he was
Mhm.
doing that, he realized that Ethereum, like most new things, they were taking some shortcuts,
Mm.
which is fine. And the specific shortcut that he was noticing was that they were smashing the application layer and the data layer together. Most in
Hmm.
computer science, when you're building systems, you typically have a separate data layer and a separate application layer. And this is important because it makes the software easier to maintain, less brittle, less risky
Hmm.
to build. There's a lot of it's an engineering best practice,
Right.
but they kind of skipped that with Ethereum, which is fine. It
Hmm.
allowed, you can still do an awful lot of things, as is obvious by all the stuff going on in the Ethereum world. But his observation was that eventually it was going to become a barrier. There were going to be problem
Hmm.
sets that it could not handle well, if handle at all, because of this shortcut. And so Factom was created to be a blockchain data lake for
Hmm.
smart contract application layers. And so
Okay.
we're not Bitcoin or store of value. We're not smart contract platform. We're a third kind of blockchain. And
Hmm.
we organize, Accumulate specifically organizes data and governance, authority, signatures, and things like that under
Okay.
identities. And so and we're not here to, most of the smart contract platforms are Ethereum with some glitter of some sort, but basically they're all fighting for the same space. But we're not in
Right.
that space at all. And we're here to work with Ethereum, to work with Solana, to allow them to do more.
Okay.
We don't
Okay.
replace anybody.
Okay. Okay. So, do you mean to say that is it fair to say Accumulate is not a L1? It's some sort of
No, Accumulate is definitely an
functionality
L1.
provider, or how? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand. If you say you are not going to replace anyone, so I have two questions. Two questions is coming in mind.
Sure.
How exactly how can we contribute with existing chain, and how can we collaborate, and how can Accumulate go hand in hand with that? That's the first thing. And before that, I want to understand, when we are saying Accumulate is something different and it not need to be have smart contract as well in a detail, as you mentioned, so how it is doing, matlab, can we have smart contract on our Accumulate chain? Can developer build that, or it's already inbuilt in your chain?
No,
How is it?
we're not a smart contract platform at all. Or,
Okay.
that
Okay.
and I'll give you an example from the previous world, in that if you
Okay.
think about Oracle, and typically
Hmm.
when you build applications, you build it on a database, but that there's an application layer above that.
Okay.
And you don't typically put your code in
Hmm.
Oracle there. But you may remember
Yeah.
back in the 90s, there was a brief
Hmm.
period where they were doing stored procedures and everybody thought this was the greatest, coolest thing. And you notice
Hmm.
they're really not around anymore. And there's a reason for that, because
Hmm.
putting your code in the data layer is a bad idea. It makes things
Yeah.
hard
Yeah.
to manage. And so, no, you don't write the smart contracts, but you can accumulate up next to Ethereum and use
Okay.
both of them at the same time. And I'll give you one really good example of
Please.
where
Yeah.
that works.
Hmm.
If you think about the real world asset world, the tokenization of
Huh.
assets, the whole reason that what people do tokenization is to increase liquidity, right? I've got this
Right.
shopping center, this office complex. I'm gonna tokenize it. I'm gonna fractionalize it. I'm gonna put these little
Hmm.
tokens on a marketplace, and now they're electronic,
Right.
and investors can get to them. But there's a problem, and this problem is at the core of Paul's observation, in that
Hmm.
because those tokens are a smart contract, and the smart contract
Okay.
keeps its data inside the smart contract, that means that token can only exist in one place at a time. So
Okay.
I can have my token on Marketplace A,
Oh.
access the liquidity there, or I can have my token on
Hmm.
Marketplace B and access the liquidity there, but
Got
not
it.
both. And so I'm limited, which is the whole point. Liquidity is the point. So by using Accumulate, I can take the
Hmm.
smart contracts that the existing smart contracts that do this
Hmm.
tokenization, move the data down into
Hmm.
this blockchain data layer, so that
Hmm.
instances of the smart contract are just the rules, just the regulations, but they all refer to the common data. And now I can launch
Hmm.
that token as many places as I can.
Interesting. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So what I'm getting from your explanation, we have here logical layer, which is my smart
Mm-hmm.
contract.
Yep.
We have my at the bottom where my smart contract is deployed, that is chain layer, and in the middle we have a data layer, or we can say it's in a parallel. Data layer is something
Parallel.
different. Whatever the data we are handling on blockchain, which is now currently stored in the state of that smart contract, which
Right.
can be pulled upon the Accumulate chain, and it
Right.
is not a now it's a shared one. Wherever
Right.
this Accumulate chain is connected, you can access your data directly over there. Is my understanding correct? Right?
That is absolutely correct. And we
Oh, okay.
have the mechanisms to maintain the
Hmm.
cryptographic connection between the two,
Hmm.
because your Ethereum smart contract or Solana smart contract or whatever,
Hmm. Hmm.
you
Hmm.
still want it to be trustless.
Hmm.
And
Hmm. Hmm.
we
Right.
allow you to maintain a trustless environment, even though your data is down on Accumulate.
Right.
Um, and another example of that, I mean, one of the big projects that one of the groups I'm working with now, Certain, is working on, Accumulate has extremely powerful multi-sig. The addressing
Hmm.
model and the security model are not tied together like they are on both blockchains, completely
Okay.
separate.
Hmm.
And so you can have infinitely expressive, I defy you to come up with a governance model that I can't implement in 5 minutes and
Okay.
Accumulate. And it's all
Hmm.
parameters. which is really powerful. And now we're getting ready to launch an L2 that takes that power and wraps it around every other chain, including UTXO chains like Bitcoin. So you'll be able to sit and you have one orthogonal way of dealing multi-sig with all of your assets. And it does two things that's pretty exciting. Because right now the multi-sig is becoming really important because we're getting to the point that the crypto world is moving into the enterprise, into the traditional finance, and you need multi-sig to do the financial controls.
True.
But the existing multi-sig solutions, which are all based on implementing multi-sig in smart contracts, so you're moving the security, like for Ethereum, you're moving the security out of the blockchain into smart contracts, which is, that's not good. And number two, smart contracts, multi-sig is really complex, really complex. Implementing in the smart contracts is not practical, which is why the solutions are very limited in the sort of multi-sig they can do. And so what we're doing is we're saying, okay, don't put the multi-sig in smart contracts. Instead, put it in the core of a blockchain that's designed to do multi-sig.
Okay.
And it so that your multi-sig can do anything you ask. It's not limited. And number two, it gets rid of a huge hacking hole that, for example, caused the recent $1.4 billion hack at one of the exchanges because we don't have that attack surface. So anyway, those are the, but again, that's accumulate, working with and adding capabilities to every other chain. We're not replacing Ethereum. We're just giving Ethereum really powerful multi-sig without the hacking holes, and Avalanche and Bitcoin and everybody else.
Okay. So what I understood, Accumulate is adding so they are trying to address the challenges, what is there in the existing chains, and they are trying to solve these problem, data layer problem, multi-sig problem, using the different blockchain. So it's giving the integration platform. So let's say there is one dApp already built on Ethereum. So at the same time, they can use the Accumulate as well for their data management, data layer management, and for multi-signature purpose if they want to do so. Okay. Now I have one quick question, interesting one. We are talking about blockchain. So is there some sort of consensus mechanism we do, or something different is we are working? Because you said it's not working on smart contract stuff, but still some validation will happen here, right? Or how that things work here?
Yeah, we still have consensus and we still have validation. The reason the name Accumulate comes from that we're a accumulator validator model. In that, number one, we've separated consensus from validation. Consensus happens at the core. Validation happens out at the leaves at the validation nodes. Yeah, and what this does is it allows us, for example, Accumulate is actually a network of networks. You can have networks of validators, which allows us to scale because if you look at Accumulate, because it's identity based, it's not account based. This is another kind of big difference is when you look at most blockchains, you see a long row of lockers that are basically accounts. And the lockers are randomly assigned. In Accumulate, when you look at Accumulate, what you see are identities, and the identities are addressed by URLs. I have a human readable URL that's like /bankx/cash account instead of some random hexadecimal number. But because we're organized around identities, one of the end results is every identity is basically its own blockchain, which means that Accumulate is just naturally sharded. And so we can set up an ecosystem where I've got subnets of validators that are responsible for subsets of the identities.
Amazing.
And so as we grow and I add servers, I can add more subnets. At the same time, consensus is happening at the center. And so there is a consensus data model that the system maintains that's very small. And so one of the result of this is, like, for example, we had an intern working for us this summer who's built a light client that, because we're sharded at the identity level, you could bring this light client up. It's small enough to fit on your phone, and it can contain all of the data for the entire network's consensus, and then you load the identities that you care about.
Okay.
And now it's a fully functional node that can participate in consensus for the
Damn.
identities that you care about.
Okay, for the identities which you care about. Okay. So
Right,
it's like,
right.
so it's actually difficult, little bit tough to understand, but let me put it this way,
Sure.
what I understood from your explanation.
Yeah,
So it's not an account based chain. It's completely
right.
identity based. Okay. Whenever someone want to onboard their node into, or they want to create their node into the system, they'll get the unique identity for that. And that is itself, you mentioned that identity can create a network of validator sort of thing. And it can be bind with, one identity can bind with multiple validators, or let's say their own connection sort of thing. They want to create a pool or there's something like that. And that again can be segregated into the small chunk where the small mini network sort of thing. So at consensus layer, let's say if I want to do consensus mechanism, or I care only for 10 identities which I regularly connect, or I'm doing some business operation with my 10 clients.
Exactly.
So that 10 clients can be fit in my mobile handset, and that will act as this, my mobile will act as a validator for all those my 10 clients. Is my understanding correct?
That's exactly right. Another side effect of this is most blockchains, you're either a public blockchain or you're a private blockchain.
Right.
Because we're number one hierarchical, and because we have this, because we're sharded by identity, you can create a subnet where all of the validators are behind a firewall and you can have permissioned validators. They're still crypted. That subnet is still cryptographically anchoring into the public network above it. And the end result is you have a private network. Nobody can see your data, but unlike most private blockchains, where if you're not part of the consensus, you could be cheated. If I can't see consensus going on and I have you hand you data from my private network, you have no idea whether we cheated you or not. However, in this model, because it's anchored to the public network, I can hand you a piece of data along with the cryptographic roots to the anchors, and you can prove that piece of data without seeing anything else, which gives me all of the power of a private network and all the power of a public network and none of the disadvantages.
Okay. Again, this is also a little complicated to understand. So what I understood, one particular, so this conversation is getting a little deeper, and that's what I want to do with you, because it's very important, right? I want to understand this, how things works. So we have here subnet, right? So you mean to say subnet itself can act as a private network with their validators?
Right.
Absolutely. Got it. And for proofing purpose, all the cryptographic and consensus mechanism proof and validation will be taken care from the public chain, because already it is connected with the public chain.
Right.
So
it's
that's
cryptographically anchored into
anchored with the public chain.
And we even have one of our clients that's building something on us. That capability is exactly why they're building it, because they're in the supply chain area. There's a lot of supply chain where it would be pointless if it wasn't public, but there's a lot of stuff in the supply chain that really needs to be private. So they're using this ability to have a private subnet. And it's kind of interesting because if you think about it, supply chain, there was this huge project with IBM, with, Giant Gorilla, Maersk, which is the largest shipping company in the world. They several years ago announced and spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this thing called TradeLens, which was going to be the blockchain-based supply chain answer to all. And after about 2 years, they gave up. The project was a complete absolute failure. And the reason it was a failure is because they were doing it on a public blockchain. Because it's pointless without the public part. But all of the people that they wanted to participate, the stakeholders in the supply chain world, most of them, their value is their Rolodex. It's they know who to go to get X, Y, and Z, right? And that's their value, and they hold that very tightly. So what TradeLens was doing was asking them, okay, take all of your most valuable information and put it on a
Put it
public
on
blockchain. And
blockchain.
so all the stakeholders that they
Anonymously.
wanted to get involved, they didn't just say no, they said, heck no, no way. So this group is getting around that because they can,
Right.
that private information of the private stakeholders can remain private. But when they get to the government regulators that have to be proven things, they can still cryptographically prove the data from the private segments to
Right.
the regulators that have to see it.
True. Got it. So amazing. So as you mentioned, there is your clients are trying to build the some supply chain use case on Accumulate as well,
Mhm.
right? So I'll come to that point little later, but I'm getting one more question now. So
Sure.
when we talk about consensus validation, there is
Mhm.
always some reward mechanism will come into the picture, reward mechanism or some tokens.
Mhm.
Are do you have your same like native token sort of things on chain,
Yeah.
or how
Yeah.
that so how that reward mechanism work? Can you please explain a little
So
bit on that as well? Yeah.
sure. So we have our native token is the ACME.
Acme.
And we were somewhat surprised when we were building this Accumulate that nobody had taken Acme. Number one, because the obvious connections to Roadrunner and all of that. But actually, the thing that attracted us is it's actually a word, Acme, and it means the best. And so yes, that's our token. But we have the Acme. Our validators are rewarded with Acme. Our tokenomics are that there is a 500 million token limit. It's not infinite inflation. And the way the protocol works is every year it awards 16% of the unissued tokens to the validators, which if you
Okay.
do the math, that works out to about a 4-year halving. But there is one oddness about us. We can't do anything normally. We have
Okay.
to do everything just a little bit oddly. And on the token side, our oddness is we actually have 2 tokens.
Okay.
And we started this in Factom. And the reason we have 2 tokens is the validators are rewarded with ACME, which are your traditional tokens. They're on exchanges,
Right.
they're fun, you can trade them, all of that tradable. But to
Right.
use the network, you have to use a second token, which is the credit. And you get
Credit.
credits by burning ACMEs. I take an ACME, I burn it, and it becomes a credit. And by the way, when I burn an ACME, it goes into the unissued pool again. So there's kind of an ecosystem there. But the reason we use the
Okay.
second token is because the network holds the conversion rate between ACME and
Credit.
credits such that your cost of using the network remains stable. Costs,
Okay.
for example, it costs $5 to create an identity, and which is the thing you do the least. It will cost $5 today, tomorrow, next week, and it costs a tenth of a cent to write a K of data. And it will cost a tenth of a cent today, tomorrow, next week. The idea was that if you're building a business model on top of a blockchain, it's really hard to do that if you cannot predict your costs. And so this
Cost.
gives
True.
builders an absolutely predictable cost model while retaining the
Amazing.
advantages of having a fungible, tradable token.
Correct. Amazing. It completely makes sense. It's a smart move to have 2 different tokens. One is for running your network where business gets the promising advantage to have a proper mathematics, and they can understand, they can predict what kind of costing model will looks like, and they'll get the same charging. At the same time, we have a tokenomics, like a general one, what we have,
Right.
a tradable one and all those things with the Acme one. Amazing. Good one. So now we can talk more about, now I understood the chain, how it works, and it's in a great way. Now, what is the current stage? Like how far we went, how many great products you have built on top of this change, or what are your promising projects, or where, in which use case, in which industry we are targeting? First, let's start with the which industries is more focused in this Accumulate. What kind of projects is building? Yeah.
Well, the 2 most promising projects that we have going right now that are getting ready to launch are number one, Certain, which I talked about a minute ago, which is going to provide basically a platform to provide infinitely powerful multi-sig across all assets.
Right.
And that same project because it's
Mm-hmm.
a part of what they're launching is the layer 2 is
Mm.
really some infrastructure that connects cryptographically us to
Mm.
other chains. Will also be the launch pad for a large number of other things. For example, when I was talking about the tokens that you can put on more than one exchange at one time or more than one marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
we'll also use that infrastructure. Another project that we have it's another layer 2, it's Genalt, and they're doing something really interesting in that right
Mm.
now I'm going to make a prediction that sometime
Okay.
your listeners in the next year are going to be reading about some terrible financial disaster that some company has got itself into because
Okay.
they have built
Uh,
AIs and agents into their business process that were making
okay.
financially meaningful decisions autonomously, and
Uh,
somebody manages
uh,
to grab that agent and swap it for one. And
right.
so, for example, in their accounts payable system, the agent's sitting there picking up a bill and say, okay, I'll pay this bill and
Uh,
I'll pay it to, Bob's Deli, and I'll pay this one to the power company. But wouldn't it be nice if I were a hacker in North Korea, if I could swap that agent out so it'd pick up, okay, Bob's bill, I will pay it to North Korean account. And here's the power company, and I will pay it to North Korean
yeah.
account, right? And
Yeah.
you could have a big, the great thing about computers is
Mm.
they allow you to do things much faster for good
True.
or for ill. And
Bad.
so
Yeah.
now
Doesn't care. They do task faster. Yeah.
right. And now I've even created intelligent agents to do things much faster
Uh-huh.
for good or for ill. And so I predict you're going to see that. And
Uh-huh.
it's exactly the reason why Genalt is being launched, because
To not.
the idea is, okay, let's take those agents. How about if we take your agent and wrap it in a blockchain-based digital identity so that,
Okay.
and the whole
Mm.
idea, I mean, the basic idea behind this is know your agent. You got
No,
know
your
your
agent.
customer, and
Okay.
now it's know your agent, know your AI. Make sure
Mm.
that the AI, and this is something that Accumulate is uniquely suited to do because identity, we're identity based. We're obviously a blockchain, but also
Amazing.
our ability to do very complex governance
Mm-hmm.
becomes really important here, because not only is it going to be an identity, but there's also going to be
Mm.
chains of authority to,
Mm-hmm.
the AI will have to have the proper, just for the AI, I talked a minute ago about the, the kind, I know it was kind of a silly example, I realize, but the accounts payable agent,
Mm-hmm.
everything goes to the account in North Korea.
Right.
But under this model, the agent wouldn't be able to do that because it wouldn't have authority to
To
reach
access
that
some
account.
other agent.
Right. Because everything that it touches has to be wrapped in identity, and if it doesn't have the proper identity, and so we're building a platform that's going to allow you to safely
Hmm.
use this, because agents, and I mean the power, and it's going to transform our society,
Hmm.
but it's going to be painful, and
Painful.
they're going to need controls, and that's what we're building.
Amazing, amazing. So what I understood from your explanation, so we are trying to add the one governance layer on top of agent itself. So and we are
Hmm.
providing the identity to that agent. So we should know we are communicating with which agent, and we know the
Exactly.
history of that agent. We know
Right.
who, like whose agent is this, Akshay's agent or is this Jay's agent, or to which agent exactly we're talking. Or let's say I have my 10 different agents for 10 different tasks. So what
Right.
exactly specific task we are trying to do there? And based on that, I can allow or I can manage, I think, where or which agents I can like access.
Right.
I can give only, let's say, okay, JS2 agent I can access and do this scheduling calendar and scheduling podcast sort of thing. That's the agent can work. Other things, payment, okay, simply decline. No need to do that stuff or something
Right.
like that. So we are trying to mirror a very smart move. And this particular AI agent industry required these kind of solutions to make a proper governance, to make our system secure and more promising. That's what I believe. But now I have here one more question.
Sure.
How exactly this gonna work? Like we are saying this, but is it really practical to do that? Because AI agent is something which is running on a heavily on a different cloud on a or it's a server mode, right? So how that blockchain gonna integrated with that? So do you have any clarity on that side? Yeah.
Yeah, and so for example, part of the platform is also going to provide cloud, basically AI hardware, but again, also wrapped in identity and such, so that I know what I'm using. And so you will be able to, and you can also, many organizations will have their own AI cloud internally. And so you'll be able to differentiate, okay, this one over here, I'm wrapping, Chat GP, and this is one that my level of trust is not real high. Here's one that I'm running on software that is part of the Genalt, or on hardware that is part of the Genalt platform, have a pretty high level of trust at that. Here's some that I'm running on my own internal hardware, have a really high level of trust on that. And again, wrapped in identities, wrapped in governance, so that I'll be able to say, I don't trust you very much. So there's a very narrow set of things that you can touch, up to the, hey, I'm running it internally, I trust it to do a lot of things.
Okay, so based on their compute level, also we are providing the proper identity, and we are segregating at their deployment layer itself. So based on that, we'll consider their trust level. If it's deployed on a public cloud, it can be less trusted because it can be hacked by someone or maybe controlled by anyone. We don't know, right? Something like that. If it's hosted on my personal infra or personal on-prem server, which I know where it is exactly, it's in my control. So that is more trustable sort of thing. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. Amazing. Amazing. So yeah, so these kind of use cases we are building. That's completely great. Now, one more question. As a developer, as you know, I'm a blockchain developer. So that's why I got able to relate what you're trying to say and how can you are building it. So what are the opportunities or what are the things there in the market for developers like me to work on the accumulate? So accumulate, how can they contribute on the accumulate chain, or how can they start building stuff on it? Yeah.
Well, it's actually pretty easy, because if you go to there's accumulaternetwork.io is the Accumulate's webpage. And we were early on in the Accumulate project blessed with a number of really good technical writers who are the hero in our industry. The technical writers are gold, and if you have good technical writers, treat them very well.
Yeah.
And so, number one, just learning about Accumulate and such is very easy, because you can go there, and there is a development community. And of course, there's the GitLab hub. It's an open source, and I probably should have said that right at the beginning. Accumulate itself is an open source project. Most of the people that are contributing, there's a few paid people at the labs, but most of the contributions are open source, because, and the reason a lot of times people do it is we're unusual in that our validators are fairly simple, but you can't, because of our hierarchical network, I'm trying to figure out how to best say this, because you can create your own subnets, you can take our validator code and add to it. Like, for example, and we've the supply chain folks are doing this. Their validators are enforcing some extra business rules, because that's, basically that's what the validators do, is they're enforcing the rules of Accumulate. But they don't care, and you can add more rules. So within your subnet, you have rules that you want to enforce. You can launch a subnet of validators that are enforcing those rules, which make for some really interesting things to be done, and solve some interesting problems, because suddenly you can very easily launch a distributed solution to some specific problem. And you don't have to you don't have to go through all of the pain of creating a whole blockchain. You can, as little as you want, and still be fully distributed if you want, or just be a consortium.
Yeah. Right. So you meant to say that creating the validator and getting into that subnet part of that architecture, that's easy. That's completely open source.
It's
just
completely
get that
easy.
validator and connect
The
with
validators are written in Go, and just about anybody
Hmm.
can pick up. I mean, it's a fairly standard language. And then
Amazing.
we of course have APIs for Python and C# and JavaScript, and
Amazing.
seems like there's one other, but just the standard tools to build things.
Cool, 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 cool. Amazing, amazing. It looks pretty standard and promising one for sure. Got it, got it. Now, I would like to come to with respect to your experience, as you are
Sure.
a lot of experience. So, how was your overall experience through this blockchain industry? You know, it's evolved majorly. There is a lot of evolution happens in front of you itself when you are in the industry. What was your observations and how where exactly this industry is moving? What's your thought on this?
So I got thrown into this in, like I said, in 2018
Hmm.
when Paul
Right.
Snow called and said, "Hey,
Hmm.
I'm doing another startup." He and I had done a startup in college many years ago,
Huh.
and I said,
Right.
"Sure, well, we'll do that again." Uh, I hadn't actually been paying a lot of attention to blockchain up until that point, and so I leaped into
Hmm.
this, and it's been an interesting journey because we're a different blockchain company. We're we're a different
Ah.
blockchain. And so and I come from a more I look at the world from a more of traditional computer science and best
Hmm.
practices and such. So when I started looking at the systems that were being built,
Hmm.
there's a lot of very small disconnected systems. And
Hmm.
I believe that and every blockchain was an island. And
Yeah.
but I believe that where we're going, number one, there's not going to
Hmm.
be one blockchain that rules them all. There
Right.
is going to be a fallout. I mean, a lot of the there's thousands of smart contract platforms, but I
Hmm.
don't think the world will ultimately support thousands of smart contract platforms. But
True.
there are room for various smart contract platforms that are focusing on different aspects of problems. But
Hmm.
the successful players in this market are going to be the ones that start figuring out how to start connecting things. And like a good
Okay.
example, we've got a group that we're working with that have the Cohen network, which is
Hmm.
which provides the interconnect for what we're doing with certain to the UTXO world. Um, and
Uh-huh.
and not bridges though. And this
Hmm.
is one thing that and bridges are a side effect of the
Okay.
limitations of smart contracts in that, the data is inside the smart contract. And so in order to move something, I can't just instantiate it. I have to actually move the entire thing. And
Right.
bridges are risky. And I think ultimately they'll go away as we get to a more integrated world. Like, for example, where you've got a blockchain data layer, where
Uh-huh.
if I've got something running on Ethereum and I want it on
Hmm.
Polkadot, that I can
Yeah.
just instantiate it over there because the data is here on Accumulate. And so
Right.
we're going to, I think, start seeing the melding of the traditional ways of building things, but still leveraging distribution, still leveraging the ability to do distributed trustless. I think did you just lose me?
No, no. It's buffering little bit.
Okay. Uh, but yeah, I think we're going to start seeing the more traditional apps start leveraging trustless. And I am just such a huge fan of building trustless systems that no one can reach in and do anything, that they're not censorable. Once they're launched, they're beyond the reach of governments. Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah, yeah. You answered it very well. So I got a lot of things from it. So I have here one more question.
Sure.
What are the challenges you face in this journey? Let's say you are building from Phantom to Accumulate. It's a huge journey, right? It's a long journey. So what was the challenges you tackle in this journey?
Well, the biggest challenge has been just getting the word across. The whole world was
Hmm.
very focused on smart contract platforms for good reason, because they
Right.
the Ethereum launched, and then there's all these incredible things you can do with it. But all along, we've been sitting here knowing, okay, but you're going to run into trouble when you get to a certain point. And so getting across the kind of the hype wall with the smart contract world, and it's kind of been gratifying the last year or so, because now we've got people coming to us because they're running into the wall. There are things they would like to do, and the whole governance multi-sig has been the thing where we've just seen the greatest traction, because it is such a core problem, and we're finally starting to see some recognition that we need a better solution.
True. Amazing. So breaking that particular standard, I think that was the biggest challenge, and coming over that, like, instead of everyone is chasing that smart contract model, but you choose not to do that, do something valuable, solve the real problem, like multi-sig, that data layer, all those things. Got it.
Yeah, well,
So
we
now
solve
one more
specific problems. I mean, yeah, we
specific
solve
problem, right?
we see some specific problems, and we've tried to address them. Go ahead, you had a question.
Amazing, sir. Yeah, I have one more question. Like, here it's breaking a little bit, but I think that's fine. So what's your advice, or what's your take for these young generation, the young audience who are trying to build something on top of blockchain? What's your advice for them?
Well, number one, I would be, and because I'm always talking to our developers, number one, I would say take full advantage of the AI tools to start out with, because there are some incredible ones. But number two, this is an open source. Almost all of the blockchain world is an open source world.
Open source, yeah.
Open source, and just go out and build things. And try building things on various projects. It's a very wide, diverse, and growing industry. And if you build things and put them up there, and you will get notice, and one of the projects will get interested in you. But you have to have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. If you're not a bit of a risk taker, then don't bother, because this industry, I mean, you just have to look at the number of projects that launch and then just kind of sit there and do nothing. So it is a risk-taking industry. It's well worth it. Because if nothing else, there are a lot of opportunities to change the world. The way that people do payments, the way that information is available, the way that information is controlled, the way that access to resources is used as a source of control. These are things that blockchain can build around. The original Bitcoin was originally, its whole point was to take the financial system out of the control of the central bankers, and that's a big idea, but there's a lot of smaller ideas that are available still, in terms of taking the control of supply chains of farmers and middlemen that are really not adding anything. I've seen people working on that. I've been seeing people working on projects to get microcredit to places where there is no microcredit, to get commerce, to get to places where there is no commerce. We're rapidly getting to the point that everybody has a cell phone, and like our blockchain can run on a cell phone, and some others can too. So there really is an opportunity to do something financial for yourself, but also, if you're a little bit idealistic, do something for the bigger world. Leave the world a little better than you found it.
Amazing. Good thought. Leave the world better than what you found it. Amazing. So you have to contribute something valuable and start open sourcing and building stuff and be a risk taker. Okay, this is my take from your conversation.
Yeah.
I hope I understood it well. Yeah. Amazing. So, sir, I would like to ask one more curious question. You have been in tech from your very beginning days, right? And you solved multiple problems. Let's say the banking problem, the banking sector with your early experience, blockchain problem, and maybe some other problems as well. So what's your biggest learning lessons so far after your complete experience as a you can say as a developer or project manager or as an entrepreneur or as a life lessons. So any life lessons you can give me so I can consider those and think for those as it will help me as a learning purpose.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll give you one of each. From the technical side,
sure.
the thing that I found is always know what's going on under the cover.
Okay.
When you're building systems, know what's happening underneath. If you want to build elegant, powerful systems that will, kind of stand the test of time. And this is something that I have seen, I've been fortunate to work with some of the smartest, best builders in the world, far smarter than me. And the one thing that they all had in common is whatever system that they were using, whether it was a programming language, a database language, they always took the time to figure out what was going on under the covers because it keeps you out from painting yourself into corners. I mean, it's really easy to just sit down and start writing, but it's always worth the trouble to look under the covers and see how it's working.
Correct.
On the non-technical side, I think the greatest lesson that I've learned, and I think we talked about this in an earlier conversation, is that really when it all comes down to it, it's the people, the team that you're working with. More than once, I have decided to go to go to a company or to go to a project or not to go based on the people there. Part of it's personal preferences. I mean, they've got to be people that'll work with you. But at the same time, you want people that are a little bit adventurous, that are a little bit, and maybe that's me. Because like I said, I tend to be entrepreneurial, but you're going to spend an unfortunate amount of your life, some ways, doing work, unless you happen to be, inherited millions of something. And if you're going to spend all the time, it ought to be with people that you like. And if you're working with people that you like, you'll be more successful. If you're working with people that, I mean, I've never seen a project that has been successful with a bunch of people that don't like each other, which is not to say that they don't yell at each other. Some of my most not being able to speak the next day because we were screaming so loud arguments have been with some of the teams that I've loved the most. And that was part of why I like the teams, because we could get into these terrible screaming, shouting matches about how something could be done, should be done, but still at the end of the day, everybody's still friends.
Wow. Nice. Amazing. What to do and what not to do. And I think the point you mentioned, that non-technical one, that's completely makes sense. There always should be a different kind of peoples to have a successful project. It cannot be in a peaceful manner. There should be proper brainstorming and that roughness in the journey. That's completely valuable, sir. Very, very helpful insights. So I think you enjoyed the podcast. I enjoyed a lot, got a lot of learnings and great lessons. So yeah, I think this is good for today. We'll try to set up some other sessions some other day, discuss on in much, much more detail one, right?
Okay.
So I enjoyed a lot.
it immensely.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I enjoyed the questions. I hope occasionally I came up with something useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thank you so much.
Talk to you
Please
later.
stay back.
Bye.
I think we will wait for to upload it. Okay. I'll stop in later. Thank you so much.
Okay.